All right, we'll be continuing with page 3 on ancient Rome and the rise of Christianity. And this is our third page today. So Greco-Roman civilization is the blending of Greek, Hellenistic, and Roman traditions. We talked about Hellenistic. That came from the Greek culture that we talked about in the previous chapter. For Rome, trade and travel helped spread this vital new civilization during what was called the Pax Romana. If you remember again, that period of Roman peace. A lot of people have heard and know about this one relating to Rome. It's the city of Pompeii. It was a city buried by the volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The rain-hardened ash helped to preserve it, so it covered the entire city. Once investigations were starting and they started to dig out the ash, they found a city. They found bodies that were kind of entombed or encased in this hardened ash. It left forms of their body. You could see their moment of death, what they were looking like. I remember hearing or seeing the one where the person had their hands in front of their face. One person is kind of almost laying down, or not laying down, but leaning over on their side, and then they're just solidified in that way. I kind of compare this with Mount St. Helens, which blew in about 1980, May of that year, I believe, if I'm right. And if you were within 4 or 5 miles of the volcano of that mountain, you probably didn't make it out, because there were like 100 feet of ash immediately around the eruption. So another quick story. After my mother remarried, my father passed away, and then 3 years later my mother remarried, and it was a man who lived in Scappoose, Oregon. He was 50 miles from Mount St. Helens, and on his sidewalk he had 2 inches of ash that came from Mount St. Helens from 50 miles away. So other things that they found in their excavation of Pompeii, they found mosaics. That is a picture that's made from chips of colored stone or glass, pottery pieces, whatever, where you take the colors and you assemble them to create a picture. Very meticulous, very nice artwork done from these. So talking about architecture, Romans used concrete, or using concrete, they developed the rounded dome to roof large spaces. And the most famous of these is the Pantheon. That was a temple built to Roman gods. I think we'll mention that on the next one, but you can see it here. There's the dome. Had a hole in the center of the roof. But again, thinking of the time period, that's really quite amazing to be able to use concrete and create a building of that size. So the Pantheon was a temple built to all Roman gods. Still stands in Rome today. So here's some people inside the building. Again, very large. You can see the size of it here. There's the hole, and that's looking up at the hole. I never really have investigated why the hole was there, whether it was for letting smoke out or ventilation or looking at the stars. I'm not really sure. I guess I should find that out. The Romans were very skilled engineers. They built drainage systems. The roads that were built back then, roads that were built back then are still in existence today. You can walk on them. They're very well made. Do a good job. Built bridges, harbors, aqueducts. I'll talk more about aqueducts on the next slide. So an aqueduct is a bridge-like stone structure that brought water into Roman cities. The wealthy had it piped in. Now this is a case where it wasn't a good idea or not a good thing to be wealthy because of the lead pipes, the people that had it piped in got gout, which makes your feet swell up, and I guess that's not a pleasant thing. Here's some toilet facilities that they had where they could have that material carried away from the city. I don't know what happened to it beyond that, but it was drained away from the city. So here's some examples of different aqueducts. The water was carried up on top here. Again, up in the mountains, a spring, a small river, something, where the water was put into this, and then it would be carried by gravity down into the city. They estimate maybe 800 million liters of water per day went into the city of Rome. And I always ask my students, what are some advantages of building the aqueduct in this manner with these arches, these layers of arches? And of course, better looking, that's definitely one. And they're wide at the bottom, and then as the next row is built, they're smaller, of course. But the advantages would be people and animals can pass through. They don't have to go up and around. They can just go back and forth. Also, if the wind is blowing, the wind can pass through it instead of pushing against it. And if it, conditions were right, it may cause it to tip over. So certainly, the wind passing through would be a benefit. Also, because of the arch, you don't need as much material to make the aqueduct. So lots of advantages for making those. The architecture that they used reflected the pride that Romans had in themselves and in their activities and the things that they did. Every city boasted a public bath. These were not just places to go and wash, but you would exchange news, hear news, gossip, hear gossip, exchange gossip that you'd heard, and tell someone else about it. These were also multi-level structures. Many of them had pools and gyms, libraries, steam rooms. In Ben-Hur, we saw examples of this where they went, just kind of a place to hang out and visit. You might get a rub down, you might bathe in a pool, but again, the guy with the horses that comes to make the wager, he does it in one of the bathhouses. Ptolemy was an astronomer whose theory was that the Earth was the center of the universe. Now, of course, that was a mistaken theory, an idea for about 1,500 years. But it's understandable why he would say that. As we watch the sun come up in the east and go over and then set in the west, we know that it's not, we know the sun isn't moving, but if you lived back then, you see what's moving. Well, the sun is moving. And you would think that the earth is the center and everything else is going around us. And so we've talked about the heliocentric theory before, and that's of course the correct one. But anyway, so his mistaken idea of that. Okay, a couple of things to finish up. Civil law, this one applied to the citizens of Rome. In some cases, to be a citizen, you had to be born to someone who was born in Rome. So if your parents are born there, but they were not, their parents, say your grandparents were not born in Rome, but they moved to Rome and then had your parents, and then they had you would be a citizen, but your parents would not, because you were born to a person who was born in Rome. okay? Sometimes citizenship went to just landowners, okay? The next one, law of nations, this one applied to all people that were under Roman rule, whether they be a citizen or a non-citizen. And later, these two systems, civil law and law of nations, merged together and extended citizenship across the empire. So remember Mare Nostrum, which was all the land surrounding the Mediterranean Sea, which was under Roman control. And we have this term in our laws and things today where you are innocent until proven guilty. And to me, it's kind of frustrating sometimes that we almost maybe work too hard to protect the rights of somebody who may or may not be guilty of something, more so than we did to, protect the rights of the person that was wronged or killed or attacked or whatever the situation was. So, okay. So that ends page 3. Thank you.